April 11, 2022. Romans 1:17 For therein is the righteousness of God, revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. Romans 10:3 For they being ignorant of God's righteousness, and going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of God. 10:4 For Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to every one that believeth. 10:5 For Moses describeth the righteousness which is of the law, that the man which doth those things shall live by them. 10:6 But the righteousness which is of faith speaketh on this wise. There was a righteousness of the law, under Moses, which dictated that you would live by keeping that law, and the righteousness of faith, which speaks. Two manifestations of righteousness, one was passing away, the other in advent. This is what Paul was referring to when he said that the Jews were ignorant of God's righteousness, and were trying to set up their own. What they were trying to do was keep the law of Moses, not knowing that Jesus had fulfilled the law and it was being set aside for the righteousness of faith, which was to be God's standard for righteousness under the new covenant, the age of grace. I stood less than 10 feet away from Kenneth Copeland at World Harvest Church a few years ago as he acted out this very truth during the service. It was a good message, but I can't tell you offhand what he preached, but what stays constantly with me is what he did. We were all enjoying the word at a meeting when all of a sudden the power to the building shut off. We all walked outside into the courtyard and I stood by a large flower pot, for lack of a better description. Then Kenneth Copeland came out of the building, stood in that flower pot, got a microphone and continued his message. I remember reading that his wife, Gloria Copeland, was once preaching in a meeting somewhere, where a storm was so severe that it literally ripped the doors off of the building right near where she was standing. The ministers and staff at that location were trying to get her to stop and take cover, but she refused, saying, "I don't allow the devil to interrupt my meetings." We fail to see the impossible in our lives because when the impossible opposition arises we stop. When we see no way to go forward, we stop, and the devil wins. Faith in action is simply refusing the devil's plans and outcomes, not figuring a way out of the situation, but simply standing and continuing what you were doing until the Lord tells you something else to do, or the storm subsides. The storm, in any form, or manifestation, has no choice but to yield. You have authority over it, but you do have a choice. You can cower in fear, or stand in faith. As one who has done both, I strongly suggest the latter. For most people, as they grow in faith, it is easier to see healing manifest than to see provision manifest, unless you have grown up with great wealth and have an expectation of having it. The reasons are pretty straightforward. As in the time when I was diagnosed with heart failure, and told that I would not survive without a heart transplant, I had only one choice. Since I wasn't going to let anyone cut my heart out, I had to believe God, because I couldn't do anything else. When it comes to issues of provision, we can usually come up with an alternative. We can manipulate someone else out of money, we can go into debt, sell chicken dinners, and any number of different kinds of things, other than standing in faith. Since ministering the word of grace is so vital, God allows many of these methods, but they aren't faith, and they lead people to a powerless gospel. Of first importance is your being born again. So many, in some ways successful ministries live out their existence in the red. Better is a ministry that brings people both to spiritual life, and victorious dominion in this life. Share freely.